Welcome to the Good Wood Show.
Welcome everyone to episode number 30. What a big landmark today, and with a very special guest, Pio Vincenzo. Welcome. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation.
Thanks for having me, amigo.
We met in person actually in Amsterdam, actually using the t-shirt.
I fully remember the exact interaction, and you bought the shirt, and then I refunded you, obviously, because I refunded everybody. Yeah. But it's very cool to have you rocking the shirt. I'm also coincidentally wearing a Bodoggos shirt right now.
It's like Bodoggos, the Bodoggos. Before we go to like Bodoggos and MicroStrategy, probably. Can you give us a little intro about you, especially before crypto? Who was Pio before crypto and NFTs, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in my early 20s, like really my late teens, early 20s, I started my first media company, and I ran that media company for about 4 or 5 years, which at that time was, a significant percentage of my life. So it was very tied to my identity. It was focused on making music videos and trying to climb the ladder of the music industry, which is definitely a very challenging and frustrating ladder to climb in the United States. After that business, I wouldn't say failed. Essentially, after I just didn't want to do that anymore because of how frustrating it was doing it in New York, and then I moved to Los Angeles and continued the journey there. I ended up just, needing to make money out of survival, and I ended up going into, sales, and that sales was headhunting for a recruiting agency. And it was a great experience. I left that agency after 3.5 years, probably could have left after like 2.5, but obviously there's life circumstances that kind of create situations. And then after that, I'd say this period from when I left that agency until I started the business that, the Nifty with Nick, that we're going to probably talk about today, that's kind of my dark period in the sense that was, from late 2017 to call it really 2020 when I discovered Bitcoin. It was like a 2-year period because I had like corporate jobs in New York that absolutely sucked because I knew I didn't want to do the hardcore sales role again, because even though the money's nice in that, and obviously there's good skills and good experience, I knew I wasn't going to be able to start my own creative thing. I didn't know I wanted to start another media company, but that's ultimately what I eventually did and what I was working toward and what I'm happy with now. And so those corporate jobs that I got were so bad. And that 2-year run, obviously there was like good stuff in my personal life and I liked living in New York City and everything, but professionally it just really sucked. And I'm like the kind of guy that wants to have, really good work to focus on all the time. And then, in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I discovered Bitcoin. I discovered Tesla stock too at that time. And I got really into investing. I've been passively investing with those like robo advisors, like Wealthfront and I forget the name of the other notable one. From like 2016, 2017, I was using those, but I wasn't really hands-on with my investments until 2020. And that was when I got into Bitcoin, and then NFTs came out and I thought it was really interesting. A friend of mine was doing trading card sales, and it kind of felt like the same thing, only digital with like Bitcoin's technology incorporated, right? Blockchain. And that just started, a lot of momentum, a lot of snowballing that created the company. And now we're going to be 5 years into it in October. Yeah.
It's crazy, and time flies, right? It's especially in the crypto world where 1 week it's the same as 6 months in in the real world or the Web 2. So you actually worked for Robinhood, right? At some point, and it's crazy now. The last job, right before the Nifty, and it's crazy now probably to see them releasing their own chain. At the time, were they already a little bit, pro crypto or something? Like you could see this vision already at the time?
When I worked at Robinhood, you could buy and sell Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin. I don't think Solana was on it. I mean, this was like, I left Robinhood in February 2022. So I'm assuming, you could buy majors. I don't know if you could buy like AVAX and stuff like that, but you could definitely buy like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, and other, I think, retail sort of focused coins. You could not, I do not think you could withdraw the Bitcoin, right? So I think if you had it on Robinhood, I don't think you could withdraw it. So it was real Bitcoin, but you couldn't withdraw it. It wasn't like on chain like that, right? But I really felt like they were going to go hard on Bitcoin. And I actually, because I was a recruiter there, I would tell these engineers that I was recruiting, and it was very hard to recruit engineers for Robinhood at that time, because that was when Robinhood IPO'd, and it IPO'd at 60. It immediately ripped to 80, and then it dumped from 80 to 8.
Wow.
It did a 90% drawdown.
Like a crypto coin.
Like a crypto coin, right? A literal 90% drawdown. And all the candidates, I mean, these are really good candidates. If you recruit software engineers in California, which Robinhood was in Northern California, I was living on the East Coast working remote, but regardless, if you recruit these really great engineers, they have a lot of options that are very competitive. At that time, the great options were Google, Facebook, Netflix. I don't remember really Tesla coming into play a lot, but yeah, it was like basically Google, Facebook, Netflix, and then sometimes, Databricks, companies like that, like either the big behemoth tech companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon and Netflix, or the up and coming stars who had stocks going up, not down 90%. And so I'd have to answer questions about the stock price and all that, right? But at that point, I was like 2 years into like really being into investing. So I actually think that I was the best recruiter out of everybody to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And there were like some meetings at Robinhood where it was like a 10-person meeting, 12-person meeting, and I would like go off about what I would say about the stock price, and people would be like, damn, like I gotta do that pitch, So like there were meetings like that were pretty funny. And I was definitely known as the guy that knew the most about Bitcoin and about crypto. And I got one of my colleagues into Bitcoin, and he went full Bitcoiner, and we still talk about it to this day. And he works at a big tech company now. So I think he's just crushing it, buying more Bitcoin. But I would tell candidates that I thought that crypto was going to be a huge thing for Robinhood. And when you think about it, I guess it did take 4 years for them to go as hard as they're going right now, but it's been a very big part of Robinhood's. If you look at like, their revenue and stuff, it's been a huge part of their business for quite a while.
And I assume that it's not easy for a recruiter to recruit to a new, like crypto was new. Not only crypto, but they had stocks and stuff. Like a financial app, you are maybe the best person at the time for to do that, right? Because you had the background, you are familiar with Bitcoin as well. Do you think that if you had stayed now, you had like a big role in Robinhood, different from what you had at the time?
I actually wasn't recruiting engineers for the crypto team. When I would talk to the engineers about crypto, it was in the context of future growth for Robinhood, really in the context of the stock price. Because like the candidates are they're literally like asking you, why is the stock down? Like, I want the stock to go up. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, yeah. But like, you have to talk to them about like math and how like any engineer that I placed at Robinhood when I worked there, the stock was $8. So if those engineers were getting multiple $100,000 packages for stock, right? So like, let's say an engineer was a senior engineer, he's getting like a $500K, $600K total package. It's like, $250K cash, $200K stock, $50 to $100K bonus. So if this dude stayed for 4 years and got locked into $200K stock at $8, forget about the refreshers, because you're going to get refreshers every 2 years. Forget about the next package that you get when you get promoted and all that stuff, right? Anybody that I placed, if they stayed for 4 years, their 200K is 2 million now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I feel great about my time at Robinhood. Anybody that listened to the shit I was saying, it worked out. You know what I mean? Like literally, if people said that guy Pio seems like he knows what he's talking about, I'm going to go to Robinhood, they stayed, they crushed. They absolutely crushed. You asked if I had stayed at Robinhood. Dude, I don't like having like day jobs, and I want to be doing creative stuff. And could I have probably grinded out Robinhood for 4 more years? Yeah, sure. But like the turnover in these tech companies is brutal. Apparently the job market is just way different now. I've been out of the job market for like 5 years, right? So it's like, it just doesn't seem super fun to be out there doing that stuff. And I love what I do. And I'm so excited about what we're doing. And like now my life's mission is to like get our Instagrams just absolutely popping. My Instagram, Clemente's Instagram, our new comedy YouTube like that we launched and everything. So obviously I'd be rather doing that. Like I really have no idea. I would have probably had to leave Robinhood for one reason or another. Maybe I would have got laid off. They've had multiple rounds of layoffs. But I was crushing it there. So I don't know if I would have gotten laid off. And the guy I put on to Bitcoin never got laid off, and he was good too. So maybe me and him would have just been over there for a while. He works at Anthropic now. So he got another good job.
Okay. Yeah, you nailed it. And then do you think like the skills that you gain through all those recruitment companies then helped you to create Nifty and hire the right people like Clemente, even Easy, right? I assume that they helped a lot on the Nifty and Bodoggos.
They did. Like you have to be like objective about it, even though I obviously would have rather been doing like creative stuff and everything like that. Getting practical business experience, really, especially the first 3.5 years of that agency, because that's like real like entrepreneurial business experience. And then the sort of dark period in New York with the corporate jobs, that was learning about like bureaucratic work setups and how shitty working at companies is and how companies can run when they're big and bloated. And then Robinhood was like the big tech experience, which is also pretty relevant for crypto. And like when we were raising money for this company, the Nifty, which if I could do it all over again, I don't know if we would, but it's all part of the journey. Like we didn't know that it was really effectively going to turn into a media company versus a software company. But then again, right now, Easy and Nick are building a ton of software. So maybe it's coming back to being a software company, who knows? But, you know, when we started the company, one of the pitches to the founders is like, oh, Pio works at Robinhood. So it's like, all right, he comes from big tech, you know,
exactly.
But really that was like the founders or the investors wanted to give Nick money. So ultimately I didn't really have a lot of impact. I think I stopped. I didn't prevent them from giving us money. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. So since you mentioned, how did you first connected with Nick? So I assume before Nick, you followed like the NFT trend, right, on Ethereum, right? And you saw like everything popping and like, okay, I need to create something like this, right? And then you connected with Nick. Can you walk us through the path?
Yeah, I found out what NFTs were in November 2020 because I heard a podcast with the founders of Nifty Gateway, Duncan and Griffin Cock-Foster, that were talking about NFTs. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I didn't really take any action on it, but it was like rattling around in my head a little bit. And then by February, a friend of mine actually bought an NFT on Nifty Gateway, and I bought one. And then from that like day, I think it was like February 10th, 2022. From that day, I just was totally immersed in the space. It was a very interesting journey. And yeah, from February 2022 until the end of the year, a lot of stuff happened. It's actually interesting because it felt like it was so long, but it wasn't that long, right?
Yeah.
It's really not that long, from February to October. But from February to October, I went from buying my first NFT to basically becoming a creator on Twitter and YouTube, talking about NFTs specifically, trying to talk about Bitcoin, but no one would listen. But then the NFT stuff would start to like grow. To then joining a company that was focused on NFTs, like a small company that had just started, which is how all NFT companies were at that time, to having a falling out with that company, to getting, introduced to Nick, and then to starting this company. All happened between February 2022 and October 2022.
And both of you wanted to create an NFT project at the time, right? Or was one of you had the idea and pitched to the other one?
No, both of us. And we wanted to do a project, but we also just wanted to have a media company about NFTs. We were doing this podcast, right? We're doing a YouTube podcast. We were doing,
So Nifty originally was always meant to be a media company.
Yeah, to some capacity, because we started with the podcast, right? So we are believers in internet content as a distribution platform for business. Like that's what we're believers in. I think it would be not smart to think that that's not the case. I mean, if you ask Gary Vaynerchuk, if you ask Mark Andreessen, if you ask a lot of Joe Rogan, a lot of different people, they'll tell you that, internet content is how, let me put it this way. A friend of mine who's really smart pointed out that like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, just being able to make a product was a huge deal. If you could go make Lime scooters, like these rentable scooters, then that was a really big deal, right? To be able to make that product. Or if you could make Dropbox, the software product, then that was a really, really big deal. Investors would give you money. You'd get users because no other product was like it. And it was very hard to build that product. Now, building the product is borderline the easy part. If you come up with an idea for a product, you can talk to Claude for a few hours and have a working prototype that day. And then if you really stay on it, you can have a very polished software product in a few weeks. So the product part is a lot easier. Now it's getting the distribution. It's actually getting people to know about it. And obviously that was always something, but it's kind of like how if you were a band in the 90s and you made like an album, just being able to make the album was really hard. You had to have enough money to go to a recording studio. You had to have a producer. You had to have to learn how to do all that kind of stuff that's more technical than just being in a garage and playing the guitar. But once you had it, you could get it in front of people because so few people went through the whole process to have an album that they held in their hand and could go to a record label and show it to them. Now everybody can make the music. And so it's harder to get noticed because so many people make music and they put it on the internet, right? So it's very similar now with software.
There's so much competition now. I see, and I'm speaking a little bit against myself, right? I started a podcast a little bit also influenced by you guys and a lot of the big ones. But now every single small project started their own podcast, their own spaces, right? There's so much content. How can you differentiate yourself from everything else that is like happening in this space, for example?
You mean like if you're starting a content business in crypto?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're starting a content business in crypto, you're going to want to, number one, make really good content. You have to make really good content. And a lot of crypto folks really struggle with that part. Yeah. But once you figured out that you're making some decent content, I think I'd try to focus on social media growth hacks. You have to keep in mind that you're on Twitter. That's your platform. So don't even worry about Instagram or anything else. Doesn't matter at all. YouTube doesn't matter. Do everything on Twitter. Make sure that you are building relationships with people in the space that are at least, quasi bigger than you. Like really at the beginning, anybody that's bigger than you, try to get them on your podcast, try to get them to retweet it after they get on. Make some clips yourself. Like you don't have to pay clippers or anything. Just make some clips yourself, post those, tag the person, get them to retweet it. Just try to get any kind of momentum like that. And then make content about trending stories in the space, especially stories that correspond to assets that people own. So for example, Cash Cat was a recent one. Make content about that. Yeah. Anson's coin was a huge one. Make content about that. Try to make content that stands out that's about those assets, because in crypto, the number one thing that people care about above everything else are the coins themselves, because they have a financial stake in it. And that's ultimately what crypto is. So even though we make comedy content, a lot of times the best performing stuff is like Clemente talking about how he lost money on a coin, and then all the crypto people can't resist dunking on him or giving him advice, because that's what they care about is the coin. They care about like trading the coin. You can make the funniest video of all time. They won't give a shit because that's not what they're here for, right? It's like if you go to a sporting event and you try to make a video, or like if you're in the sports world and you start making videos about finance, it's just not going to hit the same. You got to talk about the big story going on in sports.
Yeah, and it's a bit, sometimes it's a bit, I'm not saying frustrating, but if you create good content, right, positive content, let's say, and people that are just trolls and, negative engagement farming content is the one that normally thrives. How do you see that, especially on Twitter, but I assume that is also on TikTok and other platforms happening like that?
I don't know if I'd frame it that way. I just think that some people make engaging content and some people don't. And so engaging content oftentimes has stakes. So if someone's like, I just bought $1 million of a coin, you might frame that as positive because he's saying, I bought it and I like it. And that's positive and it's going to positively impact his life is what he's saying. But I would just say that it's more high stakes. Or another person could hate an asset and say that asset sucks, and you could define that as negative. But I think it's just more so that there's stakes because a lot of people, inherently own the asset. And as a result, they might lash out at that person because they feel that their asset that they own is being attacked. It's just kind of the same thing as sports. Again, if you're on like sports Twitter or something, let's say you do a really funny impression of somebody, maybe you can get that video to get a lot of views, but it's actually going to be hard to outperform the person that just has hot takes about sports, about what player is good or what team you should bet on or what team's going to win the championship versus who's not, because you end up getting passionate fan bases or people that are betting on sports that defend or attack the person's position. So it's really very similar with crypto. Instead of sports teams and players, it's coins and ecosystems.
There's something new happening on Solana, and you can hear it. Soul Radio is a 24/7 radio stream and original tracks only. No copies, no noise, just real vibes from the ecosystem. If you're part of the space, you need to hear this. Discover Soul Radio now at soulradio.fun.
And then going back a little bit to the creation of the Nifty, then you done the mint, right? The Nifty portal, and then you start onboarding people. Like I remember Easy was, I think, was not part of the original Nifty team, and then he started. How much did Easy then influence you guys to make the decision to create then Bodoggos on Solana?
I would say massively, yeah. I mean, Easy was involved with the business in a more loose way at the beginning. He was like a contractor. He wasn't full-time yet. He hadn't quit his day job yet. He must have quit his day job maybe in March or April of 2022. So like pretty early. I'd actually be curious to find out exactly when he quit. But if I had to put a date on it, I think it would be like March, April, May, maybe June, but it wouldn't be later than that summer in 2022. But obviously him being very well-known in the Solana ecosystem and interested in dropping an NFT project on Solana, he was a massive driving force in Bodoggos for sure.
Were you already familiar with Solana in general, or you were more like Ethereum native? Why the shift to Solana?
So Solana like went down to, I think it was $8 was the bottom. From $8 to call it maybe $20 or $30, I bought $40,000 worth of Solana. So I had like a good amount of Solana, and that obviously like went up substantially because it ended up going up to like $270 and stuff like that. So that was super cool. But yeah, so I mean, Solana, Easy was just into Solana, and it seemed like an interesting NFT ecosystem. Gas fees weren't they weren't existing there the way they were on Ethereum, and we thought that volume could be interesting, that royalty revenue could be potentially be good, and that there was a passionate community there that was super interested in a profile picture focused NFT project on Solana. So we did it on Solana.
It's funny because you guys minted Bodoggos during the bear market, right? How confident were you that you would sell out and things would work?
We were confident that we would sell out. We didn't know what the primary sale revenue from the mint was going to be. And Robinhood delisting Solana actually negatively impacted our primary sale because the price of Solana went down on the back of Robinhood delisting it. I believe, if I remember correctly, Solana went down to like $17 from, I don't remember how much it was, 25 or something like that. And when, you're selling an NFT project that's denominated in Solana, as you can imagine, that's quite the haircut. But we thought it was going to sell out. We weren't really worried about it selling out. There seemed to be a decent amount of hype about it. And yeah, there were a lot of opinions about it going into it. So yeah.
Did you think that you missed a PFP art when you done the Nifty? Because it's all NFTs are the same art. Did you think that was also a big factor to create Bodoggos?
Yes. Absolutely. And it would have been better to have a profile picture project when we did the Nifty portal for sure. It would have led to more volume, less questions, maybe a bigger primary sale. I don't know. But yes, it would have been better to do that for sure.
Why did you go without PFPs at the time with the Nifty? Was any reason in particular?
I actually don't. Well, I think, I don't know. I think it would have been a lot harder to get a profile picture project out the door. And I think we wanted to get that thing out, and we wanted to do a membership thing, which is, I think, a little different than the profile picture thing. So we wanted to get that out. Yeah.
It's quite curious because some projects that I know actually went the other way around. They had PFPs, and because the business became so serious and so professional, let's say, they didn't want to have their image associated to a PFP, and they became cards or I don't know, portals like you guys, right? Did you think having a PFP doesn't give credibility to the business, to the external world outside of crypto?
I don't think that there's any NFT businesses that are having any impact in the external world at all. You could maybe say Pudgy Penguins because of some of their social media success, but I don't think that I'm just being honest. Like,
yeah,
nobody cares about anything NFT. No one cares about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So exactly. Do you think anyone cares about a random ass NFT project? No. So it's all just crypto stuff.
Yeah, in this echo chamber, right? That's everyone we think that there's a lot of people here. We are the same, I don't know, few thousand around on city. The other question is, when you build the community, right? Because community is the most important thing on a NFT project. Gives you volume, gives you attention, also of course royalties if there's sellers and buyers. What did you learn from the Nifty that then you implemented then on Bodoggos
we
about community?
Sure. I mean, you just had experience running a internet community on Discord, which still seems to, I suppose, be the approach that people take with this stuff. I mean, no one's making new NFT projects right now. It's just not a thing. So I don't really know exactly where things go. I think that NFT volume will return at some point. I just think that it's going to take time. And I don't know how passionate, like, I just think people like to trade crypto and they end up like joining a community. It's just a little different than it was 4 years ago when it comes to crypto communities. They have much fewer people, much fewer daily active users just across the board. And it's been like that for like 3 years at least. Yeah. It's been a while. Like, it's really been a long time.
It's painful.
Declined activity.
Then you guys actually grew a lot, right? At some point you were very like prominent in the space, not only Solana but Ethereum in general. And then you had some key moments when the founder of Bored Ape Yacht Club mentioned like Bodoggos, and then you have this the yacht meme, right, that became viral, where Nick became Nick, Choose Rich Nick, right? Tell us a little bit about those moments. Were they created or they were just complete, I don't know, pure luck or spontaneous? Sorry.
Yeah, they were spontaneous. I think that people that liked us kind of told the Bored Ape Yacht Club founder, Gordon Goner, Wiley Arano, about the Bodoggos project. He took a look because maybe he was interested in Solana NFTs. He took a look at it. He found one that he liked that was Pepe themed. He bought it. He posted it. People, and that at that time that was very strong signal in the market, so it led to a lot of sales of Bodoggos. And then with Choose Rich, I mean, that was, you kind of saw it. It was just a selfie image of us on a boat with Nick in the foreground. And it obviously went insanely viral just across social media, across platforms, Reddit, Instagram, everywhere. And then we just made videos on the back of it, basically. And the videos crushed. And if anything, looking back, we should have just done more, like more selfies, more videos, everything.
Feed on that hype, right? That's what everyone does, right? But can you share more any other like especially moments from the Twitter Spaces? Because at some point in the beginning, at least, spaces were open, right? People could participate and speak with you guys. I started like that. I remember like there was like 6 or 7 people in on YouTube. There's any like memorable moments, like crazy, that became like memorable for you at least?
Yeah, it was always memorable. Like at that time when celebrities would try to be selling like a crypto project, because it was always like, clearly just not like, it was just that they were trying to make a buck. And Yeah, I mean, like, I just remember like kind of cooking some people on those spaces and stuff like that, which made people laugh and people thought it was funny. That was very early on. That was before we consolidated the show and made it less interactive with the audience, because people just kept coming on stage and shilling random stuff instead of participating in the show. So yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of memorable moments from that time.
Yeah, and then after that, you got Sig, Kicks, and then and Clemente even before that, and they were kind of key for the progress, or the like how things became so hyped, right? Because Kicks has a very spontaneous and honest take on anything, and it's quite funny. And Clemente then became quite viral because of its naivety, let's say, right? Buying stuff, it was always buying the top. What are your comments about those moments and about those people?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, Kix is a friend of mine. He's a co-founder in the company. You know, he's doing his thing right now with, I think he has like a new show. You know, he was doing prediction market stuff. He's always very smart guy, always going to be figuring out how to maneuver both in markets and as an entrepreneur. And then, you know, Clemente has always been a very talented content creator, super funny and able to take people along, you know, with a story. So I've always enjoyed watching Clemente's content and having him grow.
Yeah, and then more recently, then you shifted a little bit from NFTs, and you are more, let's say, dedicated to Bitcoin and MicroStrategy as well. Why was that shift? Was just because of the bear market, or was something else that happened?
I'd just say my interests, like, you know, I'm very interested in, and always have been, in Bitcoin and in MicroStrategy. And, you know, my interest in MicroStrategy continue to grow. I think it's like the best company basically, and like, or one of the best companies. It's definitely the best company that in terms of how good of a company it is against my knowledge of it, because I do pay very close attention and know a lot about it. And so I just got more focused on that.
And do you see you creating another company or project related with Bitcoin? Not sure if it happened already, but like content creation just for Bitcoin. I remember you were interviewing a lot of guests related with Bitcoin, but do you see something in the future like that?
If they're really interesting, I haven't even been doing that a lot recently. Like if they're really interesting, you know, people that I want to talk to. But the thing is I'm not like focused on it. So I don't really like to half, you know, commit to things like that. I'm really just committed to our Instagrams and, you know, the creative content that we make there. And we post that stuff to Twitter too. So that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah, there's some projects like you mentioned, Pudgy Penguins, and then I'm sure you're familiar with Claynosaurus, right? And they have their episodes now on Amazon Prime. That's massive, right? And those two are kind of the exceptions. A lot of projects tried IP stuff and creating content on a more funny way. Do you think there's still this intersection between crypto media, IP, collectibles?
I think that it would be really hard to do it from scratch today. And, you know, the folks at Claynosaurus, for example, they're, you know, really good people over there. They have a background in animation, and the crypto stuff, I think, doesn't really like have much to do with the with what they're doing on television. I think that's like probably a good thing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I think theoretically and fundamentally on paper, I do think that you could talk about the future and potentially there being this kind of connection. But as long as the NFT stuff is like deep crypto, which it still is, and all that matters is crypto, it won't really matter. Like you're just kind of doing two different things. You're building a crypto company because you want to, and then you're building a traditional company because you want to.
Yeah, you have to kind of separate the things, right? You may intersect at some point, but they have to be separated. Otherwise, people would not be interested in it. Tell me a little bit about MicroStrategy, and when did you shift it from solo Bitcoin to just mostly MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor?
Well, I owned MicroStrategy stock for quite a while in my IRA because it was the way to get exposure to Bitcoin. A lot of investors had a similar approach. But then when I started to look more at the company and consume content about the company, you know, shout out to people like the True North podcast and other people on Twitter that publish content specifically about MicroStrategy as an organization, as I started to peel back the layers, I got more and more interested in the company itself and not just having the stock in my IRA as a proxy for Bitcoin. And that was when I started building a sizable position over the past, X number of years. And I still, try to add to the position, every week, especially during this time period where it's at like, $100 or sub $100.
Have you ever thought actually working for MicroStrategy would be a dream come true? No.
No, I'm an investor in MicroStrategy. I wouldn't work at MicroStrategy. No, there's nothing for me to do there.
Because it's funny, you such a important figure, at least from the ones I know, talking about MicroStrategy. It would be funny if you had some sort of approach from them to hire you. What do you think that there's so much? You mentioned the football comparison, and I've done it before as well. Why do you think crypto brings in us this partisan kind of thing, right? Where we love Solana, we love Ethereum, or we love Bitcoin, right? And we kind of go against walls because of those projects or coins or blockchains.
I just think people buy things and then they want those things to succeed because they own them. And so they defend them and talk about them and stuff like that. I mean, in the case of, really in the case of a lot of this stuff, like there's a lot of people that really believe in like Ethereum. They think that Ethereum is the future of everything, right? And so like those people just think that, and they own a bunch of Ethereum and they get tribal and weird about it where they like refuse to own like Bitcoin and stuff like that as a result. And that's just how I think you're kind of looking at human nature and tribalistic tendencies and tribal tendencies, I should say.
Yeah, it makes sense. How do you see the crypto market in general? Are you very bearish, or are you bullish at that the future or the next months or next year we're gonna be bring back the good old vibes, let's say, that we had in 21 and 22?
I think that Bitcoin is going to go up, right? Like, I don't know if the bottom's already in, but I think it might be. It probably is. I don't really understand what's going to trigger more of a bottom besides some big macro event. And I think that altcoins will rally to some capacity. If you look, there hasn't really been a major retail bull run on altcoins since like 2021. And that's concerning if you're like obsessed with altcoins. And I would be curious to see what an NFT run looks like from here too. The only thing I know that's going to go up is Bitcoin. I think that other things will go up too. Like I think Solana will go up too, of course. And I think Ethereum will go up too. But the question is, as an investor, do you think that it's worth it for you to place your bet on one of those altcoins? And you have to have a plan to sell it, I'd assume, because you're basically betting that it's going to outperform Bitcoin, which is like, it's just kind of a tough bet. It just depends. It depends on what you want to do. I think MicroStrategy is going to outperform all the altcoins, right? So it's like, if I want to amplify Bitcoin exposure, instead of going to the altcoins, why don't I just go to MicroStrategy?
And then why do you think the new regulation will help Bitcoin? Because the narrative in the beginning, right, was that we had this crypto punk mentality, not your keys, not your crypto. And now all the institutions are buying Bitcoin. Do you still have that view, or you are fine with the institutions holding all the Bitcoin?
I tend to think that all of that stuff doesn't matter. Like that whole conversation is like kind of a waste of time. I think that the Clarity Act which I think is what you were talking about, like regulation. I think that people that care about that really just want the price of the asset to go up in the short term. And I've seen it with the last time we saw it was the SBR, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve or whatever that was, the stockpile, the reserve, all that stuff. Everyone's like, when's that going to happen? When's that going to happen? Well, what they're saying is, when is the price going to go up? That's what they're saying. They're not saying anything different than that. Clarity Act's the same thing. When it comes to the like theoretical, idealistic Bitcoin or crypto stuff, that's like my least favorite thing in the world. I hate that. And I think that the people that are obsessed with that are kind of losers.
So you never bought Bitcoin because of those principles at all?
Those principles of self-custody and everything still exist completely. There's nothing has changed. It does not matter that a bank owns Bitcoin. Like, you should want a bank to own Bitcoin because it validates the asset. If you thought that a bank wasn't going to own Bitcoin, that's the stupidest mentality to have ever. I just think a lot of those people don't have realistic worldviews.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Pio, for coming. Talk a little bit about everything you've done, and Bodoggos, and of course, Bitcoin. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Chop, chop, the wood we carry. Chop, chop, never meant to bury. Fire on